The flour bin at the back of Miller's bulk store is dented tin, hand-lettered, refilled from the same £50 bag every week for longer than the sign out front has stayed legible. That bin sells the same flour sitting 3 miles away in a paper box with a brand name on it for a fraction of the price, and that gap is not a fluke week. It's a documented pattern in how Amish households actually shop. Before you picture some kind of compound that never sees the inside of a Walmart, let me correct that now. Amish families shop at big supermarkets plenty, same bulk sizes and low prices as anybody watching this. What they don't do is buy certain specific things off certain specific shelves, and that's a narrower, more useful claim than they avoid stores. You'll see the same gap in a laundry aisle, pricing a jug of name-brand detergent against plain washing soda. You'll see it in a canned vegetable aisle, where a can costs more than the vegetable would cost you to grow. You'll see it in a bulk food store, hand-stickered bags, sitting 3 miles from a supermarket selling the identical product for triple. Different aisle, same pattern, over and over. By the end of this, you'll know 9 exact things that show up in most weekly carts that Amish households routinely skip, and exactly what gets made instead, with real prices, not guesses. Some of this will surprise you. Some you already half know. And one of them, done wrong, isn't just a waste of money. It can hurt you, and I'll tell you exactly which one. My name's Helen Briscoe. I taught home economics in rural Ohio for 22 years, and for most of that same stretch, I also worked as a county extension agent, testing the methods people brought me before I'd teach them to a classroom of 16-year-olds. My card file is just over 1,100 entries now. Roughly 1 in 6 of those cards failed, and I kept those too, because knowing what doesn't work is worth as much as knowing what does. If that's the kind of thing you want more of, plain answers, tested before they're taught, subscribe now and I'll keep them coming. We're going through 9 items, cheapest fix to the one that takes the most doing, and I'm holding the last one back on purpose. Here's what I'll tell you about it now. It's the one thing on this list that never really gets thrown away, even when it looks like it has gone bad. It's older, in terms of what's actually alive inside it, than most people using it today. And you can't buy the important part of it at any store, only from somebody who already has it going. Number 1 is laundry detergent, which an Amish household just calls wash soap. The modern default is a plastic jug of name-brand liquid, scented as much as it cleans. The homemade version, grated bar soap dissolved with washing soda and borax, has been documented in Amish household recipes for generations and is still handed down today. Washing soda is a water softener. It ties up the minerals in hard water that stops soap from foaming, and once that's done, plain soap does the rest. 1 batch in a 5-gallon bucket gets you around 300 loads. You buy it all in the regular laundry aisle. Washing soda, borax, a few bars of Fell's naphtha, somewhere around $11 to $20 total, against a name-brand jug running $12 to $18 for maybe 60 loads. Use it the way you'd use any detergent, half a cup a load. Where people go wrong is grabbing a scented version, thinking it'll smell nicer. It throws off the mixture, and the cleaning power drops. The test at the shelf. Plain washing soda, plain borax, no fragrance beads. If the box says scent boost, put it back. I'll be honest, it won't outperform a modern enzyme detergent on set-in grease. It's a general-purpose soap, and it does that job well. That same logic, buy plain, skip the branding, carries into the pantry, which is where item 2 lives. Number 2 is jarred pickles, and what you'll hear in these households is brine crock. The modern default is a glass jar with dye added for colour and a preservative blend to hold it shelf-stable. The homemade version is just cucumbers, vinegar, salt, and spice, done this way long before commercial pickling existed. Vinegar's acidity alone stops the bacteria that would spoil the cucumbers, No extra chemistry needed. One batch from a 5-pound bag of cucumbers runs a few dollars, against $4 to $6 a jar retail. Use it the way you'd use any pickle, sandwiches, relish, alongside a meal. Where this goes wrong is the ratio. People eyeball vinegar to water instead of a tested proportion, and the batch is either too weak to preserve safely or too sharp to eat. The test: use a written ratio, not about half and half, and don't adjust it after the jar's sealed. Pickles are high acid, and that acid is what makes them forgiving. That forgiveness does not extend to everything in a pantry, which brings me to the item where I need you to actually pay attention. Number 3 is canned vegetables, and the term for this whole practice is putting up. The modern default is a can that often costs more than the vegetable would cost you to grow. Home canning became a national practice through the early 20th century, formalized through USDA guidance that still governs it today, and here the mechanism and the safety rule are the same thing. Low-acid vegetables don't have enough natural acid to stop Clostridium botulinum from growing inside a sealed jar. Boiling water only reaches 212 degrees, not hot enough to kill that bacteria's spores. You need 240 degrees, and the only way to reach that in a home kitchen is a true pressure canner, run at the time and pressure in a tested USDA or National Center for Home Food Preservation recipe. There are no safe shortcuts here. If a jar ever bulges, leaks, or smells wrong, it goes in the trash without a taste test. That toxin can be fatal in an amount too small to notice. A pressure canner runs $80 to $150 once, and after that, your cost per jar is close to nothing against $1.50 to $3 a can, forever. The wrong version that looks nearly identical is a boiling water bath canner. Same big pot, wrong tool. The test: does the lid lock and build pressure with a gauge or weight on top? If not, it cannot safely process low-acid vegetables. This is the one item on this list where I won't soften anything for pacing. Everything else here costs you money if it's done wrong. This one can hurt you. Number 4 is bagged or boxed flour at grocery price, and the term is simply the bin, the bulk bins in Amish-run stores. Before the 1930s, a grocery store sold dry goods like flour, sugar, and coffee, weighed out in bulk. That's closer to what these bulk stores still do. A 5-pound printed bag costs the manufacturer money to produce and ship, and that gets passed to you. A 50-pound sack scooped into your own container skips almost all of it, working out to a fraction of the per-pound boxed price. Use it the way you'd use any flour, baking, thickening. The wrong assumption is that the savings are automatic. People buy 50 pounds without accounting for whether they'll use it before it goes stale or gets into by pests. The test: ask how often that bin gets refilled. A slow-moving bin isn't actually saving you anything. This only pays off if you're baking from scratch regularly. If you bake once a year, skip the sack. That flour is for something, and that something is next. Number 5 is store-bought bread, and the plain term is just loaf bread, made at home. The modern default is a plastic-wrapped loaf, shelf-stable for a week thanks to preservatives. The homemade version is flour, water, yeast, salt, and thyme. Nothing else. Yeast eats the sugars in flour and gives off gas, and that gas is what makes dough rise. 1 jar of bulk active dry yeast makes dozens of loaves, working out to well under $1 a loaf against $3 to $5 retail. Use it the way you'd use store bread. Where people go wrong is buying single foil packets every time instead of a jar of bulk yeast kept sealed and cool. The test: proof a small amount in warm water with a pinch of sugar. No foam in about 10 minutes. It's dead. My honest limit: homemade bread has no preservatives, so it stales within days instead of weeks. Plan to eat it, not stockpile it. Bread needs something on it. And that's the next two items, side by side on what would be the dairy case. Number 6 is store-bought butter, and the homemade version is just churned butter. The modern default runs around 80% butterfat by regulation, consistent because it's manufactured that way. Home churned butter from fresh cream typically runs higher fat than that, and you taste it the moment you cut in. Denser, richer, different in baking. The mechanism is mechanical, not chemical. You agitate cream until the fat clumps and separates from the buttermilk. Use it on bread, in baking, where the extra fat improves a pie crust or cookie, and in cooking, where it browns differently. The wrong version isn't a fake churned butter. It's spreadable tub blends cut with vegetable oil. The test: check the label. Anything besides cream and salt, it isn't the same thing. My honest caveat: this needs a reliable source of fresh cream, which most people watching don't have. More realistic with dairy access than off a grocery shelf. There's something you can make with almost no special access, and it goes right alongside that butter. Number 7 is jarred apple butter, and the plain term is just apple butter. The modern default is a boutique jar, $6 to $8, positioned to look homemade even when it isn't. The real version is apples, spices, and a long, slow cook-down, a way to use up a fall harvest before it's spoiled. It's just time and heat, reducing the water out until it's thick and concentrated, with far less added sugar than commercial versions need. A batch from a bag of apples costs pennies a jar. Use it on bread, in baking in place of some sugar and fat, or off a spoon. The wrong version is a jar built mostly from corn syrup and apple flavoring. The test: apples should be the first ingredient listed, not sugar, not concentrated apple product. My honest limit is time, not skill. Real hours on the stove, no shortcut version. If you don't have an afternoon, this isn't the week for it. Now, you've probably seen some version of this list before. Here's the actual difference, and it's not the ingredients. Most lists treat every item the same, as if a laundry soap and a canned vegetable carry equal risk done wrong. They don't. I've told you plainly which one of these 9 can genuinely hurt you, and which just cost you a wasted afternoon. That's the whole point of a card file like mine. Not a list of tricks, a list of what's been tested, including what I got wrong the first time. If you're still here, you're the kind of person who reads the ingredient list before it goes in the cart. Most people clicked off a few items back looking for something faster. You didn't. Number 8 is full retail boxed crackers, cereal, and packaged snacks. And the term is bent and dent, the discount stores that sell overstock and close-dated goods at a steep markdown. These salvage stores have existed alongside regular retail for decades. A dent in the flat body of a can is cosmetic, not compromised. A box 3 days closer to its printed date isn't spoiled. A chain won't sell that inventory at full price, so it gets sold off cheap instead, sometimes 50% off or more, depending on what's come through that week. Use these exactly like their full-price counterparts, because they are. Where people go wrong is assuming any dent or near date means unsafe. The real test, a dent along the seam, or any bulging, is what to actually avoid. My honest caveat: selection is unpredictable by design. You build your week around what's cheap that day, not a fixed list. That unpredictability is close to the spirit of the last item, the one I've been holding back. It never really gets thrown away, even when it looks like it has gone bad. It's older than most people using it, and you can't buy the important part of it in any store. Number 9, the one I saved, is store-bought cultured dairy and fermented foods, cheese, yogurt, sauerkraut, bought fresh every time you want more. What replaces it is what people call the mother or the starter, the living culture kept alive from batch to batch instead of repurchased. Here's what makes this one different. Every other item here, you buy the ingredients and make the thing. This one, you buy the starter exactly once, and if you take care of it, you never buy it again. A single starter for yogurt, sourdough, or fermented vegetables runs around $8 to $12, purchased once. Every batch you make, you hold back a small portion to start the next one, and the cycle continues. It's biology, not magic. A living culture reproducing faster than you use it up, as long as you feed it and keep it at a reasonable temperature. Compare $8 to $12 spent once against buying yogurt or sauerkraut every week indefinitely, and the math isn't close. But the money isn't the most interesting part. Most people don't realize the starter is reusable at all. They think of these as products you consume and replace, not something living you maintain. That shift in thinking is worth more than the price comparison. Use it for yogurt at breakfast, a sourdough loaf like item 5, or fermented vegetables like item 3, except this doesn't need a pressure canner at all. Fermentation and heat-processed canning are two entirely different mechanisms. The wrong version isn't a competing product on a shelf. It's a wrong habit, buying a fresh starter packet every time instead of keeping a portion back. That habit is the whole difference between paying once and paying forever. My honest caveat, and it's a real one: a starter is a living thing, and living things can die or get contaminated. There's no shelf test here, no dent to check, no ingredient list to read. It needs a reasonably consistent temperature and clean hands every time you handle it. If it ever smells sharply off, or grows anything fuzzy or colored on the surface, that batch is done. You start again from the portion you kept back, which is exactly why you always keep one back. So here's where that leaves us. Wash soap, $11 to $20 for roughly 300 loads. Brine crock pickles, a few dollars a batch against $4 to $6 retail. Canned vegetables, done properly in a true pressure canner, the one item on this list where the safety rule isn't optional. Bulk bin flour, a fraction of boxed price. Loaf bread, under $1 a loaf. Churned butter, richer than commercial for anyone with cream on hand. Real apple butter, apples first on the label, pennies against $6 to $8 boutique. Bent and Dent groceries, half off or better. And the starter culture, $8 to $12 once, never bought again. 9 items. If even half of these move from your cart to your kitchen, that's a real shift in what you hand the checkout every week, and it costs you time before it saves you money, which is exactly the trade I told you about at the start. If any part of this saved you from buying something you didn't need, hit like. It genuinely helps this channel. Subscribe if you want more of these, tested and priced the same honest way. And tell me in the comments, which one of these 9 is already sitting in your cart every week without you thinking twice about it? Here's how I'd put this to use. This week, price out the washing soda, borax, and bar soap, and find out if there's a bulk store or a Bent and Dent near you. Those two cost almost nothing to start. This month, before you touch a pressure canner, try a batch of vinegar pickles first. Something forgiving, so you understand the process before anything that requires real precision. And before the first hard frost, get a starter culture going, and get your flour sorted for winter baking, because once the ground freezes, everything gets harder to source. None of this was ever really about the Amish specifically. It was about what quietly got lost the moment every one of these got a barcode instead of a name and a reason. If this was useful, send it to whoever in your life still keeps a cellar, still cans every fall, or just bought their first house and has no idea where to start. Subscribe if you want to know what these same households never throw away. That list is sitting in the card file waiting. This channel is for the people who'd rather know the real number than the marketing one.